And welcome to Module 1, Brilliant Time Management with me, Tony Hunt. I'm called this Taking Control of the Time in Your Life. You're taking control of it because you have to and because they're not making any more of it. So let's take as much advantage of it as we possibly can. I'd like you to set yourself a target. Set yourself a target now and make sure that that target is met. As we work together, as we're actually going through the modules themselves, note down a list of things that you might like to do differently with your colleagues. Collect between, let's say, 10 and 20 ideas. There'll be many to choose from, and we'll recap these ideas at the end of the program. Ideas are not enough. We must translate them into changed behavior, and that will be your challenge. But in the meantime, let's collect the ideas, collect the things that you're going to do differently, and then we can work with them. Have a look at this poem. The clock is my dictator. I shall not rest. It makes me lie down only when exhausted. It leads me into deep depression. It hounds my soul. Even though I run frantically from task to task, I will never get it all done, for my ideal is with me. Deadlines and my need for approval, they drive me beyond the limits of my schedule. They anoint my head with migraines, my in-basket overflows. Surely fatigue and time pressures shall follow me all the days of my life, and shall I dwell in the hands of frustration forever? I'd like you to look at the couplet that I've put in bold in the middle of this poem. Even though I run frantically from task to task, I'll never get it all done, for my ideal is with me. Is it your ideal that is frustrating you? Can you never meet the demands of your ideal? We have got to be absolutely sensible with ourselves, realistic with ourselves, do what we can do. And I hope during this program to be able to show you how to do that. We often set ourselves an impossible aim, and there's a quotation to that effect in a moment or two. So why do we manage time? I was really impressed by this 30-second motivational speech given by Brian Dyson, former Chief Executive Officer of Coca-Cola. 30 seconds. Imagine life as a game in which you're juggling some 5 balls. They are work, family, health, friends, and spirit, and you're keeping all of these balls up in the air. You'll soon understand that work is a rubber ball. If you drop it, it'll bounce back. But if you drop the other 4 balls, family, health, friends, and spirit, they're made of glass. If you drop one of these, they'll be irrevocably scuffed, marked, nicked, damaged, or even shattered. They will never be the same. You must understand that and strive for balance in your life. Work efficiently during office hours and leave on time. Give the required time to family and friends and have proper rest. Value has a value only if its value is valued. I was really impressed by that. I try to live by it, but of course not all of us can. Why? Because work expands to fill available time and space. That's a very famous Parkinson's law. If I give you a filing cabinet, it will be full by the end of the week. It's just a curious thing. It's how we do it without realizing it. Our habitual behaviors can cause us to expand the work we do, but with no significant increase in our productivity. So time matters. It's a resource. It's a major resource to manage. It's what it is. There's no shortage. There's no increase of it. It's a finite thing. And poor time management causes delay, error, stress, and cost. Managing your time is a personal skill. The UK Institute of Management report this. 84% of us work in excess of official hours. 60% of us always do. 50% of us take work home. And 40% of us work at weekends. You know you're guilty of this. Managerial work is what most of us are doing, and it's of an unrelenting pace. It's characterized by brief, varied, fragmented work periods with preferences for live action. 50 to 80% of our time is spent communicating one way or another, and we have frequent interruptions. So, what am I trying to achieve? There is a holistic dimension to this rather than the technical one. what am I trying to achieve? What are you here for? What are you doing? Are you here to work? Are you here to work yourself to a grave? Woody Allen says this: you can live to be 100 if you give up all the things that make you want to live to be 100. And Peter Drucker says, efficiency is doing the job right. Effectiveness is doing the right job. How about being effective rather than relying too much on being efficient? Because, as Graham Greene said, despair is the price one pays for setting oneself an impossible aim. We set our standards too high. We let ourselves down too easily. We have to find ways in which we can be realistic about what it is we're trying to do. So, let's understand that all time is not of the same value. Ask ourselves, where are we starting from? Can I ask you, what do you do every day? Are you aware of what you do every day? Are you aware that you're doing it? Do you have a certain habit of how you get into work and what you do? I'd like you to look at a time log. One of the reasons why I think people like this particular time management program is that because I only ask you to look at this time log for maybe 2 days. I went on a time management course which gave me a great big file of facts thing where I was expected to keep a time log for a fortnight. I gave up after 2 days. I'm going to ask you to look at it for simply 2 days. You can download this time log from the website that I give you here. You will see that it's divided in a number of different ways. First of all, an activity, and then a job description. Down the left-hand side, it's in 15-minute incremental elements. And to the right-hand side, there are some notes for what is called a priority code, which I'll mention and explain to you later on. What I'd like you to do for 2 days, set up a simple time log, keep it, correlate the tasks you're engaged in with some aspect of your job description. So when you do something, correlate it with your job description. And of course, if there is no correlation, that begs a question or two. So leave lots of blank forms, leave them everywhere, tell people what you're doing, expect it to be difficult and dull, and then diary in time for some analysis before you actually start this process. Then after 2 days, sit down with your time log and have a look at it and ask yourself some questions like this. Why did I do this? Why did I do it then? Was there a better or a simpler way it could have been done? Could somebody else have done it? Have I wasted anybody's time? You might like to ask other questions like, am I doing anything for which I'm receiving no credit or compensation? And I'm going to come to issues like that later. Continuing with the different values of time, I think essentially you can divide your time into 2 main areas, prime time and down time. We're all different. If I were to ask you, are you a morning person? Are you an afternoon person? Are you an evening person? You'd know the kind of person you are. If you're a prime time person, in the morning, you will fit in the normal pattern of a workday quite well. But if your prime time is at night or late afternoon, you're going to always be continually frustrated by the fact that things don't fit where you want them to. So let's have a look at this. In your prime time, that's when you're at your most alert. It's when you're full of energy. And ideally, you should be using this time for making decisions and for working on what I'm going to call quadrant 2 activities. Listen to that term, quadrant 2 activities, and you'll understand why in a moment, and how you work with what is called Pareto's 20%. The 20% of things that Pareto reckons you should do. Again, I'm going to explain that. But also, this should be where you focus your time on the work you love doing because your attention is there. In your downtime, that's a time when you're at your least alert. I'd like you to think about using that time for routine administration, for what we call quadrant 3 activities, and for what Pareto calls the 80%, and what I'll be calling busy work later on in this module. I also suggest that you use it for making and taking telephone calls. Unless you're frontline customer facing, telephone calls, making and taking them, should not necessarily be a prime time activity. We'll come into the detail of that later. 2 other types of time that I'd like to mention before we go to the quiz are bear in mind something we call recovery time. Let's say you're in prime and you're working away at your desk and your telephone rings, and of course you answer it. You answer it, you deal with the call, you put the telephone down, and then you say to yourself, now where was I? What was I doing? That's totally dead time. If you have received 10 telephone calls or 10 interruptions during that prime time of yours, your recovery time starts to mount up and starts to eat away at the ability that you have to work at your best in the time which is best for you. Another type of time that I'd like you to think of is something we call strategic reserve time. And this will become important later on when I ask you to think about how you handle your diary and how you handle meetings. I would like you to put strategic reserve time in between meetings. Rather than back-to-back your meetings, put in 5 or 10 minutes in between them so that you can recover, so that you can take notes, so that you can prepare for the next meeting, and perhaps most importantly, so that you don't have to apologize for going late to your next meeting. Hold that thought. We'll come back to it later. But I'd like to introduce you to our quiz, first quiz for Module 1. This first set of quiz questions is not about right and wrong. Its purpose is meant to help you define a context for the course that we're following here. I'm asking you about your current state and your awareness of that state. Discuss each of these points with your colleagues, and if you're working alone, consider them and consider how you respond to them. First one, do you set yourself impossible goals? Are you a perfectionist? And if so, are you proud of that? And can I tell you, if you are proud of it, stop it? That last 10% on the road to perfection takes as much time and effort as the previous 90% did. So if you are a silversmith, if you're an orchestral conductor, I can understand you focusing on that last 10%. But if you're not, think about letting go when it's right. It doesn't have to be perfect every time. And can I ask you, thirdly, what is your prime time? Do you know what it is? When are you at your most alert? Can you give it a number? Can you tell me how many hours it is and what time of the day you're at your most alert? Let's move on. Do you know how you spend your time each day? Good. Here are some assignments now to ask you to just get a little bit more thinking about how you spend your time. Remember, I've asked you if you'd photograph or you would screenshot the complete assignment pages. I'd like you to create a simple plan of action in the format that we will use throughout the course. A simple plan of action. So to start with, try this. Look through what I've said so far and select 3 items that you'll do differently. Prioritize these 3 items and create an action plan over 30 days, or enough time that will allow you to complete them. Send a copy of this action plan to your line manager and ask that person to review your progress after that agreed period of time, holding your feet to the fire. Assignment number 2. Choose one time-consuming activity and set this as a goal. Set a goal to reduce the amount of time you spend on this activity. After 2 working weeks, list the different methods you use to reduce your participation in whatever that activity is. And at this stage of the course, it's the methods you explore, not the results, that will matter, because I'm going to give you many methods to explore as we go through our program together. And assignment number 3. This is the time log exercise, and using the time log provided, define your main activities and list those main elements in your job description. And then in 15, or if you prefer, in 30-minute periods, and for 2 days only, try to record exactly what you're doing and see if you can correlate each activity with an element of your job description. And then list any anomalies that you find. In particular, any parts of your job description which don't seem to fit the activities that you're doing. That I'm spending a lot of time making telephone calls on behalf of somebody. That's not part of my job description. My boss has asked me to plan his holiday for him. That's not part of my job description. It's taking up a lot of my time. In fact, my appraisal may well show that I don't use my time well because, of course, planning for my boss's job, for my boss's holiday, doesn't appear in anything that I do in my job description. These will all become valuable later in the course. And here is a suggestion of an action plan just to see whether you can make it work more effectively. Ask yourself, are you efficient, are you effective, or both? And if your answer is yes, how can you set out to prove it? Set yourself one specific goal now. And over that, say a 2-day period, analyze how you spend your time, look to see where you can work more efficiently. Simple action plan, the action plan which will end the first module of our program. So good luck, get on with it, and I'll see you when we begin module 2. Thank you for your time.